What's good, guys? Welcome back to Sidemen Reacts, where today you have myself, Josh, and Simon reacting to ridiculous football rules from 1863. Now, it says in the title you won't believe these, but
I think we will.
I will believe them.
I'd argue that the rules today are stinkier.
Oh,
I reckon these
shots.
So are these rules that don't exist anymore, or rules that still exist?
I think don't exist anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel like they won't exist anymore.
All right. Well, let's see them. Will
Please
we
don't
believe
snort
them?
the white lines around the pitch.
That's
Robbie Fowler.
Football is a game that's always evolving, and new rules and regulations are brought in almost every year. But did you know that back in 1863, when the Football Association
Such a random
published
year.
the original laws of football
that makes
for the
sense.
first time ever, the goal had no crossbar?
What?
Yep.
What?
That's pretty crazy. And in this episode, we're gonna go through some of the most
What?
interesting rules from way back
Is
in
that
the
a rule
days
though,
and
or
see
is
how
it
they've
just people couldn't afford a crossbar?
Yeah, it's like the goal is in if it goes between
If
the
it
two
goes
posts.
between the sticks, yeah.
What, like 30 yards high?
Apparently, there's no rules.
Save that keeps, mate. Come on.
As mentioned, with the OG 1863 rules, the game we all loved looked and was played way differently. The maximum length of the pitch was
I thought that said cows of the game.
Cows of the game. At least some of them.
200 yards and the maximum breadth 100 yards. And to put this in perspective, the FC Barcelona home pitch Camp Nou is about 115 times 74 yards. And when you look at these two side by side with the 1863 dimensions,
That'd be much better.
there's quite a
That'd be
big
much
difference.
better.
Also, every time a goal was scored, the teams would switch ends, and the
What?
throw was awarded to the first player to touch the ball after it went out of play.
That's
No,
jokes.
hey, that's a sick
That's
rule.
These are much better rules.
That last rule eliminates time wasting.
Isn't it? Like,
so
you have to run,
good.
it's like the players got to go run into the crowd. Give me the fucking ball.
Get a fucking ball!
Joke.
Wait, every time a goal is scored, the teams change goals as well. That's jokes.
But then
Imagine
time-
you'd be
half
pissed,
time.
right? If a team, if it was 5-5 and it went 1-0, 1-0, 2-1, 2-2, like that, one side sees every single goal.
Scores all the goals, yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of which team kicked it out. If you got to the ball first,
Foul throw.
it was yours. Interestingly, neither tripping nor hacking was allowed, and no player should use his hands to hold or push his adversary. Meaning that basically you were not allowed to make any tackles or
contact.
use your hands to protect yourself or the ball. But honestly, my favorite rule from the OG law book is the definition of the goals. The goals had two upright posts, 8 yards apart, without any tape or bar
Yeah,
across
that's
them.
weird.
Yep, that's right. There was no crossbar, which basically meant that you could score
Significant
at
foul.
any height.
What a
as
goal.
long as
What a goal!
Imagine the penalty shootout.
This is class. It's just like, just keep getting lean back as much as you can.
through the goalpost
Jeez,
that
what a
were
goal.
8 feet or around 2.4 meters apart, which made the goal a lot more narrow than the 21st century
Oi.
full-size
Oh.
goal we all know. But just
Wait, what?
imagine
Wait,
the
wait,
modern
wait.
game without
So they're
that.
only 8 feet apart. They had to make it taller, to be fair. You ain't scoring an 8-foot goal.
How big is a five-a-side goal?
7 feet or 8 feet. I think it's like 8 by 6.
Just imagine the modern game
God, that's
without the
how-
crossbar. What would it do to the tactics?
First,
So
Simon
what
and the
about
Monsters
every
would never have
YouTuber's
happened.
favorite challenge, the crossbar challenge?
thought that was me
Anyways,
for a
only
second.
3 years later, in 1866, a tape was added between the goalposts. In 1875, it was announced that the crossbar could be marked either with tape or an actual crossbar. And finally, in 1883, it was required to have an actual
Oh,
crossbar.
if you put
between the
tape and just let it
goalposts.
hang,
So the man
like really low, you have a really weird
way out of
shaped
it.
goal.
too long. Also, in 1863, all players were allowed to catch the ball with
Right.
their
What?
hands, as long as
Right.
they didn't run with it or throw the ball after
Jeez.
the catch. A so-called fair catch was rewarded with a free kick, meaning that basically you could catch a pass with your hands, place
Kieran!
the ball down, and continue the game with
Right,
a
he's
Is that
free
just like
kick.
Gaelic
Now,
football?
this rule didn't live too long either, and in
Yeah.
1870, all handling
He's
of
gone
the
clear,
ball
bro.
became forbidden. All of it. Which makes you wonder, what about the goalkeepers? Well, funnily enough, in the original laws of football, there was
that Yashin?
absolutely no mention of
Reckon
goalkeepers.
that's
But in 1871, a year after all handling of the ball became forbidden, as we just spoke about, the goalkeeper was introduced as a player who was allowed to handle the ball for the protection of his goal
Oh my
in
gosh.
any area of the pitch.
Any area of the pitch.
Any area of the pitch.
That's wild.
That you could only pass the ball backwards.
What?
Some
And
rugby
any
shit.
player
It's
ahead
like
of the
rugby, yeah.
kicker was in an offside position. So in simple language, you could only pass the ball backwards. Otherwise, your teammate was offside. However, 3 years later, the
makes
offside
more
rule
sense
was
to be
modified
offside
for
rule,
the
you know.
first time. And the player was onside as long as there were 3 opponents between
It's
the
so
player
that's such
and
a
the
weird
opposing.
rule. Offside is such a weird rule.
Well, the current modern day offside rule, or
The current one. What decides like why you can be onside if you're behind the ball, even if you're like the ball has to go forward, but you also can't be offside if it's like a throw in or an indirect or a free or a goal kick or something like that. Like there's so many weird intricacies to it.
nuances, yeah.
It's
Nah,
actually
but it's-
so
it's-
weird.
The main bit is to stop you from obviously goal hanging, but it's also to stop the other team from being able to permanently keep you offside by staying high up the pitch.
But then there's other things like, okay, so if the goalkeeper is up for a corner and there's a defender there, that's
Yeah, it's the
offside.
second offside is the second last opponent.
And that's what I mean. It's the second last. That's weird.
It's better than this one where it's free defenders.
Bro, yeah,
True.
It still remains as one of the biggest talking points of the game.
of course. VAR.
Now, funnily enough, the 1863 rules mention nothing about the length of the match or the number of players on the pitch. And there were no actual punishments for breaking
500.
the rules. And it was first in 1874 that the umpire was introduced. The umpire was basically the first referee, as believe it or not, for the first 11 years, team captains were generally expected to make sure all rules were being followed. Just take a moment to try and imagine Messi and Ramos refereeing the game together in the middle of El Clasico. Now that would be something else. So as a little summary, in 1863, when the first laws of football were published, the pitch was, well, quite unique. The goals were
Wham.
super narrow and had no
Tiny.
crossbar. You couldn't tackle. You couldn't pass the ball forward, but you could catch the ball with your
Jeez.
hands. There was no mention of the length of the match or the number of players on the
So you
pitch.
have 100
and
players
the
and
first
play for
game
10
ever
hours.
that was played under the
Or like
OG
2 minutes.
rules was
Oh,
a
yeah.
goalless 0-0 draw between Barnes and Richmond. No goals whatsoever.
Typical
Anyway,
England, eh?
as mentioned, these were some of the crazy rules from way back in the days. Not all of them. And in the nearly 160 years, football has evolved a lot. So next time a new rule gets added to the law book, don't be mad and just remember that it's been happening forever.
No, just ended it up. There's more rules coming.
But imagine
ready?
That's it.
if
What
there
are the odds
was,
on us playing the game with them rules?
you know how small that goal would look. It's an 8-foot
we'll
goal.
keep the goals normal, but we'll follow the rest of the rules.
For an 8-foot goal on a pitch bigger than the new camp.
We're not gonna find a pitch bigger than the
We
new
can have 100 people playing on each team.
Or
Because of
not even.
dimension.
It might not even be even. Like one team could have 100, the other
Yeah, one
could
team
have
have 400, one has 4.
Yeah, I'm down.
So we
I'm down.
got to find a large piece of land with very well kept grass, and then you got to find
friends
4 sticks,
and friends.
and then friends. We don't need friends actually, Simon. It'd be 3 versus 4.
True.
on a large piece of land with
Yeah.
4 sticks.
Well, you can't pass.
Yeah, and
you
you can
can't
only
pass
pass it
forward.
backwards.
Yeah, so you don't want to have too many players. Otherwise, you know.
You know, I changed
Passing
my
it
mind,
backwards in football is actually kind of long all the time.
half the teams do it anyway. You watch England
True,
the other day?
True. It's still coming home. I say while I'm wearing a
coming
French
home.
shirt. I'm wearing a
We
French
might,
shirt.
we might be knocked out by this point when this goes out.
I'm wearing a French shirt. If France is still in it, it's coming home to France.
Puissance. Dans la puissance.